Today we've got a lot of definitions to go over. We're going to start with this diagram right here, talk about some parallel and perpendicular lines. You can see right here these two blue lines are the parallel lines. Now parallel lines never touch. They go off in the same direction, and so you can see that from here all the way along, these two are staying the same distance apart. They're going to continue to stay the same distance apart on both sides. So we've got some parallel lines. Perpendicular lines are the purple set right here. Those two intersect at a 90-degree angle, and that is characteristic of perpendicular lines. We also have other lines that intersect at a variety of angles that we don't have a special name for. But today we are going to add skew to this definition. Now, skew means that the lines do not touch each other, kind of like parallel, but they also are not parallel to each other. So how do we have a couple of lines that don't cross ever, but they're not parallel? And the only way to do that is to take our definitions into 3 dimensions. As long as we are drawing 2 lines on a single plane right here, then they are either parallel, perpendicular, or they cross at another angle. But if we take our lines and we move them out into 3 dimensions, we can have different definitions. So we've got parallel that don't cross. We've got perpendicular lines that cross at a 90-degree angle. But if we take these apart into 2 separate planes, we can see that these 2 lines are not parallel, but they also never cross. All right, so in 3 dimensions, we can extend our definitions and our views of lines. So that's what skew means, that they are 2 lines that never cross each other, but they are also not parallel. Now, looking over here, we're extending our definition of some geometric shapes into planes. And planes are classified as a flat surface that extends all the way in all directions. Now, with lines, if we have 2 points, that's enough to classify a line. And so we would write down the name of a line using those 2 points. So we could say AB, and to indicate that it's a line, we are going to have a line up above it. But planes, we have to have 3 points in order to classify them. So if this was our plane right here, this coordinate grid, AB is not enough. We'd have to have one of these other points to classify it. So we've got A, B, and D right there. We would write down A, B, D as our plane. Now we have to be careful with our notation here because ABD could be an angle if I have that angle symbol right there. If I am talking about the plane ABD, then I have to write down the word plane in front of it to know that I'm talking about that shape. Now we could have chosen other names because C is also a point in this plane, so I could have called it ACD or I could have called it CBD. There's lots of different potential names for this plane because there are lots of different points in a plane. All right, now these 2 words right here, collinear and coplanar, both use the prefix co. Co means together, so collinear would mean together on the same line. We've got A and B right here that are together on the same line, but D would not be collinear with those. So A and B would be collinear. Any other point along this line would also be collinear with those, but any point that is not on that line does not qualify as collinear. Coplanar means together on the same plane. So if we're looking at this plane right here, all of these points are in the same plane. And if we want something that is not coplanar with that, we would again have to move out into 3 dimensions where we've got another plane, say out here, or maybe the wall over there, if I use the whiteboard on that side of the room, would have points that are not in this same plane. Now we're going to take a second to talk about this picture right here. This is a picture of a fish tank, and we've got a few questions right here where we say parallel lines, perpendicular lines, and we've got some different plane questions here. All right, so CD is the line that connects these 2 points up at the top right of the fish tank. If I want to be parallel to CD, I'm going to use the notation right here with these 2 vertical lines says CD is parallel to. We have a few different choices on this one. GH right here is parallel, FE is parallel, BA is parallel. So I'm just going to pick one of those, say BA is parallel to CD. Perpendicular means that they intersect at 90 degrees, and so CD again. Right here, these lines, DH and CG over there would be perpendicular lines. Both of those are vertical, connect to that line at the top that would be perpendicular. So the notation for that would say CD, and perpendicular right there would be the symbol, and we could write DH would be one of our choices for that. All right, skew. That means that they're not parallel, but they're also not intersecting with each other like these lines over here. And so we've got CD. Let's see, EA right here would be an example that's not parallel, but it also won't ever intersect. So CA or EA right here is one possible choice to be skew to CD. All right, when we're talking about parallel planes are like parallel lines that they need to stay the same distance apart. And so the plane that we're looking at is CDH. CDH would be 3 points that would show the plane on this right-hand side over there. The parallel plane in this picture would be FEA. So you could call it plane FEA would be our parallel plane in this picture. And our last set of definitions is about angles. And so we've got a couple of pictures here that have multiple angles in the diagram. So let's go through these. First off is corresponding. Now when we're talking about corresponding angles, we're going to be looking at sets of angles. So we've got this set up top of 4, we got this set on the bottom of 4, and corresponding would be angles that would be considered in the same relative position for each of those sets. So 1 and 5 would be corresponding, 2 and 6, 4 and 8, 3 and 7 would all be pairs of corresponding angles because they're in the same relative position. Alternate interior angles. All right, interior means that we're in between. So we've got these two lines right here that create our sets of angles. In between those two lines would be 3 and 5 and 4 and 6 right here. So those are our interior angles. Alternate means that we're on opposite sides of this line right here, which we call the transversal. So a pair of alternate interior angles would be 3 and 6. They're both interior and they're on opposite sides. 5 and 4 would also be alternate interior angles. Alternate exterior angles have the same idea, but exterior means we're outside of these two lines. The exterior angles will be 1 and 2 and 7 and 8. Alternate exterior angles would be these two, 8 and 1 and 7 and 2 right there. Consecutive means one right after another. So interior, again, we're inside here. Consecutive would mean right in a row, one after another. So 3 and 5 would do that, and 4 and 6. Vertical angles are across an intersection from each other. So 5 and 8 would be a pair of vertical angles. 6 and 7, 3 and 2, 1 and 4 would be vertical angles. And we know that vertical angles are congruent to each other. So that's a fact that you should remember. On this picture, we can go through the same thing. It gets a little bit more complicated, in my opinion, to see those, but we could see corresponding angles here, 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 and here. Or we could look at this set, corresponding angles here, 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 and here. So there's a little bit more to this picture. Alternate interior angles. All right, we're looking at sets right here. So if we look at these two lines, the interior angles would be right there. If we're looking at these two lines, the interior angles would be 7, 8, 9, and 10 right there. Alternate interior, same thing, so it would be like 1 and 8, 6 and 3. Alternate exterior would be 2 and 7, 5 and 4, but we could also look at 5 and 11, 6 and 2. Consecutive interior angles would be like 1 and 6, and vertical angles we can see would be a pair like this, like 1 and 4. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.